Absolute Batman somehow keeps getting better with every single issue, and Absolute Poison Ivy is on another level. I can't remember the last time I loved Pamela Isley this much. Seriously, the only thing that even comes close is Batman the Animated Series. Without wasting more time, let's get into it. But before we start the video, if you're new to our channel, please subscribe, because your one subscription motivates us to create more amazing videos like this. Let's jump into it.
So, our comic opens with fight between Poison Ivy and Batman. One thing we have to keep in mind here, and this is something we actually learned in the last video, is that there are a few different factors at play. First, there were cops inside the building using an augmented mobile ultrasonic cannon, basically a sound weapon powerful enough to tear cells apart. But the twist is that these officers were already transmogrified by Poison Ivy, turned into agents acting under her control. And that's not all. Another terrifying ability she demonstrated was the power to grow versions of herself, essentially creating multiple Ivy manifestations to spread her influence even further. And that's what she tells Batman. "Come now, Batman, don't fight. There's no point." At the same time, Batman talks with Alfred, and Alfred says, "Kid, the density of the spores up there, if that cowl comes off, you'll have moments before you're compromised. Your genetics will be hers to shape." And then Batman just says, "Then it won't come off." Now, we actually saw this happen in the last video, and a lot of you pointed out something I got wrong. I originally thought he took his mask off, but that's not what happened at all. The mask was actually ripped off his face. That's the key detail. And that's why right after that moment, he quickly rewrapped his face with his cowl, because it's literally the only thing protecting him right now. You have to remember that the area is filled with these spores released by Poison Ivy. If those spores infect him, they can rewrite his DNA, and once that happens, she can completely control him. But what Scott Snyder is doing here is really interesting. He takes the classic Poison Ivy concept and pushes it even further. Instead of just mind control, he reframes it so that the moment her spores infect you, she can manipulate your DNA itself, meaning she can literally control you on a genetic level. And honestly, when you really stop and think about that, it's absolutely terrifying.
But Batman, in this whole time that he's talking to Alfred and says, "Now find me a weakness." And of course, Alfred Pennyworth is monitoring everything, watching the fight unfold and warning Batman about incoming attacks and threats as they happen. But at this point, all Batman wants is a way to stop Poison Ivy. Because what's happening right now isn't just a normal fight, it's a war of attrition. Poison Ivy just keeps spawning more versions of herself, sending them at Batman over and over again. The goal isn't to defeat him instantly. The goal is to wear him down. Eventually, he'll become exhausted, slower, weaker, until he simply can't keep fighting anymore. And that's exactly how a war of attrition works. It's not about one decisive blow. It's about an overwhelming, relentless force pushing you further and further until you reach the point where you just can't fight back any longer. And that's exactly the situation Batman finds himself trapped in right now. And he says, "She's made of plant, animal, insect, bacteria. Which part has a vulnerability?" And then Alfred replies him and just says, "I'm looking, kid, but if there's a soft spot to her, I'm not seeing it." And now we shift to origin part of her, where we see how Poison Ivy actually became Poison Ivy. Now, we jump back to after the fire. Now, this is a bit of a refresher because it ties back to what we talked about in the last video. In issue number 17, Pamela Isley had been working on a revolutionary form of research. Her goal was to grow new human cells using a mixture of plant matter, bacteria, insect DNA, basically the whole 9 yards. Originally, all of this research had a very personal purpose. She was trying to find a cure for her mother's cancer. That was the driving force behind everything she was doing. But things took a dark turn when Pamela started to realize that the powers that be weren't interested in saving lives. They wanted to weaponize her research and turn it into something far more dangerous. And the moment she understood what they were planning, Pamela made a choice. She walked away from them and decided to continue her work on her own terms. But that's when everything went horribly wrong. As she went to retrieve her research, a chemical fire suddenly broke out, and Pamela Isley was burned alive. And so that's where you pick up with this conversation with her mom, and that's where Poison Ivy says, "This is all that's left of her. That's what the doctors tell my mother.
The chemical fire in the lab reached nearly 9,000 degrees, as hot as a young star. It's a miracle that anything at all survived, they say. And yet, my heart appears perfectly intact. My mother asks if it's alive. They tell her no. But that's not true. I want to scream to her that I'm more alive inside this container than I've ever been, connected to primal forces I don't understand yet, but can feel as colors, green and red and black. My mother turns to go, and in that moment, I hate the glass separating us more than I've ever hated anything. But not just the glass, the powerful men who put it there, the men who did this to me, all because I wanted to go further in my research, do more. But this is what they do, those men, my enemies, our enemies, put walls everywhere, walls of every kind, dividing us from each other, from nature, from truth, dividing up everything, all for profit, their own tiny private kingdom. I will get out. I will find a way. Ivy climbs the highest walls. As my mother walks away, I reach for her. I can sense the black creeping through her. She will die this afternoon, sitting on a bench, waiting for the bus back to the hospice. No one will notice for almost 3 days. When the morgue thaws her out, parts of her fall off, her fingers, her breasts, her nose, like rotten fruit. But now, in this moment, I reach and reach with everything I have, and suddenly something new grows, something that can't be hurt anymore.
Now jump back to fight between Batman and Poison Ivy, where Poison Ivy just says, "Why are you fighting me, Batman? We're on the same side." Batman calls, "Pennyworth!" And that's where Poison Ivy says, "He's not here anymore, I'm afraid. Rare forms of bacteria can disrupt radio signals, as can some bird calls and even dolphin songs, all of which I'm emitting as we speak. No weaknesses, just strengths. You can be so much more, too. You're halfway there. You just need to embrace it." So the big idea here is that Poison Ivy in this absolute universe isn't just made of plant matter anymore. She's something far more terrifying. She's essentially a fusion of countless forms of life: plant DNA, bacteria, insects, virtually every type of living organism on the planet woven together into a single being. And honestly, when you think about what that means, it makes this version of Poison Ivy far more dangerous than she's ever been in DC Comics, because she's not just controlling plants anymore, she's operating as an entire ecosystem in one body. Now we shift to Martha. Now keep in mind, at the end of the last video, we discovered something pretty shocking. Martha Wayne was actually part of the Court of Owls, and we're going to talk more about them in just a second, because a lot of you in the comments called it. You guys pointed out something incredibly important about the Court of Owls that turns out to play a huge role in what's happening here.
So what ends up happening is that as she's walking alone, right, the plane basically having run out of fuel and making her way to Mexico, she calls Bruce and she says, "Bruce, it's Mom, honey. I'm not sure if this message will go through, but I'm going to be out of town for a bit. There are some things I need to take care of. Just know that you'll always be my little boy and I do love you. And don't you ever change for anyone, you hear me? This world might..." Then the call ends up, and suddenly this vehicle comes in front of Martha. And when these two owls come out, they actually run off the Court of Owls nursery rhyme. It's basically used as a kind of test, a way to determine whether someone is a member of the Court of Owls, or if they've ever been connected to the court in the past. So when someone recognizes the rhyme or responds to it the right way, "We watch you at your hearth, we watch you in your bed, speak not a whispered word of us," Martha says in panic mode, "or we'll send the Talon for your head." And then the owls put Martha forcefully into the vehicle, and then they bring her back to their base of operation. They tell her, "You knew the rules about communication and the consequences for breaking them. So why, Martha?" Martha responds to him and just says, "Because something is happening in Gotham right now, something that I believe was worth the risk." And then one of the owls tells her, "That's not your decision to make. You put us all in danger by reaching out." And another one asks, "What gives you the right? This is how we've survived. Just because you were one of us." Martha cuts him off and she just says, "I wasn't just one of you. I was a Talon, the best Talon. You all know what I did for the court. That's what gives me the right. And maybe surviving was enough before, but the truth is, Batman changed that." One of the owls responds ominously, "Then you can blame Batman for what's about to happen." Now jump back to fight between Batman and Poison Ivy.
Batman starts experiencing these memories. At least, that's how it's perceived here, because the first scene we get shows Batman heading down into the sewers to meet Waylon Jones. Now, let's not forget what happened back in issue number 16. Batman and Wonder Woman actually traveled to the realm of the gods so Batman could obtain a special arrow. The purpose of that arrow was to help Waylon Jones temporarily return to his human form. The idea was that it could potentially give him the ability to shift back and forth from his normal human self into his crocodile form and back again, at least for a limited time. But what's also really interesting here are the journal entries that Batman writes during all of this, because they start giving us deeper insight into what he's thinking and the strategy he's beginning to form, where Bruce says, "Don't, Bruce. Don't accept it. Don't let yourself go there. That sound, the roar you keep hearing, echoing from deep in the tunnels, it's him changing back, not becoming something worse." The other part of the Iceberg Lounge, right where Oswald hangs out at. Every time Bruce wants to talk with Oswald, Oswald doesn't want to have anything to do with him. So much so, he's actually hired henchmen to beat the tar out of Bruce every time he shows up. Edward Nygma won't answer. Whenever he visits to him, Harvey Dent has actually been cut loose from his job, that when Bruce shows up there to the law offices of Harvey, there's one of the guys who's cleaning off and he says, "Look, all I heard is hanging out with the Batman has them looking at Dent differently, and all the folks he put away, too." Later, Bruce walks through a crowded street while holding his phone, and he just says, "I got a message from Mom yesterday." I keep opening it, then hanging up before it starts. Bruce holds the phone to his ear, conflicted. Deep down, I know I'm just saving it, for when I need to hear it most. Bruce looks down, troubled and confused. What's happening to me?
And so that's when you jump back to the fight between Poison Ivy and Batman. And that's what makes things so wild, because Poison Ivy seemingly has some measure of telepathy here. She tells him, "I'll take it all away, Batman. That soft part, that pain. We're becoming one, you and me. I can feel how much you're hurting. Your mother, your friends." And then Batman roars and tells her, "Get out of my head." She says, "No, join me. Be my knight. Together, we can beat them." And then she fires rockets that plant rockets out of her hand, which is absolutely amazing. Batman cuts her rocket with his arm blade, and Poison Ivy just says, "Look at you. Spines that stab like a cholla cactus, wings that slash like an ostrich, the will of a virus. Just breathe me in. Ha! And the stubbornness of a cockroach. All right then, I'll drag you into the light one way or another." And then she says, "This city is an ecosystem, a living thing. You introduced something new, something foreign, and now the city is reacting. But instead of going further, you try to hold it back. Even now, looking for that weapon, the screaming gun behind you, like the ones they use in that place to separate my cells. Stop denying what you want. You wish to reshape things, just like I did. You blew the seeds across the city, but now you're afraid of what you've sown. Well, change is coming, whether you like it or not." Now that's two things to pick up. Number one, again, that explanation seems to be the accurate one. The very nature of Poison Ivy is that she's basically tied into plant-like around the city. So she sees and hears everything. Basically everything Bruce Wayne has experienced, everything he's seen, everything he's gone through, she's heard it in some way. She's been aware of it. And in fact, in just a moment, she actually goes even deeper into that, revealing just how much she truly knows.
But the second, this is what happens in a conversation between Alfred Pennyworth and his handlers. Alfred is told, "There's been a shift in plans, Agent Pennyworth, your new assignment. I'm looking at the bloody assignment, but why? I've been on Grimm for over 5 years, and now he's here, in Gotham, and suddenly you want me on..." And he's told, "Yes, on Batman, that's the target." And then Alfred asks, "And if I refuse?" And then he's told, "Let's just say no more enjoying a mere sweet tea." But suddenly, Harley comes in front of Alfred. Yes, Harley, the leader of the Red Hood gang. And Alfred asks a simple question, "Miss Quinn, what are you doing here?" Harley Quinn says, "I'm here to help with this whole Batman thing. We all are." The scene shifts again to a quiet corner of the city where Dick Grayson sleeps on the floor beside machinery, and he says, "All right, Dick, tomorrow you do something about him." Finally, we see Bruce walking alone near a construction yard while a group of workers behind the fence shout toward him. Workers. "Ah, come on, Bruce. We're trying that new Batman-themed bar on 39th. Come on." Another one says, "Great big wings." And Bruce just says, "I smile. Tell them another time. I hope they can't see my fists shaking." I look at the sidewalk. They're 200 years old. And that's when we jump back to conversation with Ivy. And Ivy just says, "You can walk around with your head down, blind to it, writing in your little book, but it's happening. And they see it, believe me, the ones whose plans you disrupted, the ones who hate change. The worst of them is here, their leader, their horned king, looking down and smiling from somewhere high above us both." And then she says, "The tricks he plays, the deals and pacts and bargains, carving up the world with machines, we have to stop him. I didn't think he could be stopped. All those years he kept me locked away, scrambled by those noise guns, pulled apart, but then one day, there you were, like some wild beast, running naked through my biome."
And I knew, if I had the chance, I would join with you, because Grim, he's coming for you, just like he came for me, just like he comes for anything that threatens change, isolates it, locks it away. He's making moves as we speak. I can feel it. Maybe if you were willing to evolve on your own, to become what's needed, you might be able to stop him, Batman, but you're not. Don't worry though, when I release these spores from this place, I'll make you something new. I'll make everyone new. We'll be strong, beautiful, a new kingdom, and together we'll stop him, and then we'll make that first wish come true. And so what ends up happening is that Bruce is making his way through the city of Gotham. He ends up coming across Jim Gordon, and Jim Gordon says, "I need to talk to you." And Bruce says, "No offense, but the last thing I want to talk about is you and my mom." And Gordon replies calmly, "It's not about your mom." Bruce frowns. Gordon says, "She's a grown woman, I'm a grown man, and nature is nature. But this is about you, son." Bruce blinks in confusion. "Me?" Gordon says, "Bruce, I know." Bruce looks at him sharply. "What are you talking about? Know what?" Gordon just looks at him, and Bruce is like, "Oh." Gordon asks, "Want to sit?" Bruce hesitates for a moment, then nods, and he just says, "Okay." And I was so excited at the idea that Jim Gordon knows Bruce Wayne is Batman. The real question is, how long has he known? Now, Bruce doesn't ask that directly. He's just like, "How did you—" Gordon lowers himself under the bench and answers calmly, "Son, 6'9" and 400 pounds doesn't exactly blend in. And I did pull you out from a pile of bats one time." And Bruce just says, "Right now? I don't know. He's just getting so big, Mr. Gordon. I wanted Batman to affect the city, to shine a light on things, but I didn't." Gordon replies him and says, "Expect him to become the light himself, the big old beacon in the sky." And then Bruce says, "The things I'm up against, too. It feels like to win, I have to become something tougher, meaner, something—" Gordon asks him, "Darker?"
Then Bruce just says, "Yeah. Any advice?" Gordon says, "From me? Nope. No way. I'm just an old man in love with your mom, son. But I'll give you the advice someone else gave me when I was in a similar situation to yours. Someone much smarter than me. It was advice given to him by his daughter, Barbara Gordon. And that's where, with Batman being held captive by Poison Ivy, Barbara Gordon shows back again. Keep in mind, she was originally here, and then Bruce was like, "You can't be here," just like threw her off. But Batman also trying to save her life. But she says, "You can thank me for swearing never to pull that kind of again. SWAT is about to bust in with a dozen double augmented MUCs. We need to get out of here before she figures out your—" and that's where Batman says, "the spores. She's going to release them across the city. She's essentially a walking bomb, and if we decide to take her down, she's the one we have to neutralize first, because at the end of the day, she's the real threat, the core of the entire problem." And so what ends up happening is Batman takes the ultrasonic cannon and fires it on Poison Ivy, and she asks, "You think that sound gun can destroy me?" But Batman says, "No, but it shows me what I suspected. When you bonded with me earlier, I saw, Dr. Isley, you wanted me to evolve, but you haven't gone all the way yourself." And then he says, "Your heart, last piece of your human self, you kept it, the only part of you not remade. I can see it, right there. "Destroy the spores or I'll destroy your heart. The sonic waves will disperse the cells. You could regrow it, but it wouldn't be that one, the one your mother held."
And then we jump back to the momentary where Gordon gives advice to Bruce, and Jim Gordon says, "When I became mayor, I was terrified, Bruce. I had my plan, my agenda, but suddenly the whole city was looking to me to do so much more, to be more. And the critics, they kept attacking me for being too soft, too local, too much of a people person. I was all torn up. Maybe to be a good mayor, I had to forget all the hippy-dippy stuff your dad and mom and I loved and become something tougher, colder, meaner." One night, Babs, she was 16 at the time, studying for a biology test, she found me on the balcony in my robe, staring out at the city, and she said something to me. And so then you switch back to Batman and he responds directly to Poison Ivy. He says, "Ivy does climb, but it also clings. It holds on, Dr. Isley. You don't want to lose that last piece of yourself, do you?" And that's where Jim Gordon advice had given to him by Barbara. And Jim Gordon says, "A tree grows tallest when you care for its roots." And now switch back to Batman, who's still got this ultrasonic cannon, and then he says, "Destroy the spores, Dr. Isley, now." Because the heart she holds that was held by her mother means more than the spores in changing the city of Gotham. And so that's where Jim Gordon leaves some parting words for Bruce and says, "You have good roots, son. I know you'll make the right choice when the time comes." And then Poison Ivy says to Bruce, "You fool, we could have saved everyone, everything, climbed so high, made it better. You've only doomed yourself. You're just small and terrestrial and weak and human." And then Batman says, "Yes, I have been, but not anymore." And then Batman pulls the trigger of the cannon to full power and fires it on Poison Ivy and blows her heart apart. And then Barbara says, "SWAT is here. This way."
But Poison Ivy doesn't dead. She can regrow her heart, but she says, "I'll kill you, Batman, you monster!" And another side, Barbara asks to Batman and she just says, "Batman, what happened back there? You destroyed her heart anyway. Batman, you know, maybe you should take this back." And Batman just says, "She said to fight what's coming. I need to evolve. I just took her advice. Maybe we all should." Now we jump back to Martha in conversation with Owls, and one of Owls just says, "I'm sorry, Martha. We really hoped you'd listen to reason." And Martha just says, "I'm happy to disappoint you then, because I always believed we Owls were never supposed to listen to reason." And then he says, "That's enough." She says, "No, it's not. We stood for something once. Remember? We were the ones who fought back from the shadows against the rich and powerful." So the Owls were good guys here. They weren't bad guys like in the DC universe. And then she says, "We were warriors, fighting for a better world. Proud, wise, vicious. Owls. And yes, they crushed us. He crushed us. So now, maybe we need to be something new, but not by hiding or by changing who we are at our core. If that's what we're about, you might as well pull the trigger." And this is where things get really big, because the idea that Martha Wayne and the Court of Owls might actually be operating as freedom fighters completely changes how we view everything. And then we get this final set of moments, these quick, telling glimpses. A delivery driver shows up to drop off a package for Oswald Cobblepot. Edward Nygma suddenly realizes Batman isn't knocking on the door. And then we cut to Waylon Jones back in his human form. And he just asks, "Bruce, are you here? Bruce?" But Bruce isn't there. And that's where you pick up on a rooftop where he hears a voice message from his mom, and she says, "Bruce, it's Mom, honey. And then Bruce just deletes the messages on spot. So it really feels like he's starting to become a darker, more ruthless version of himself. And that raises a terrifying question. Just how much more brutal can he actually get? But with that being said, guys, that's where we're going to wrap things up for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you drop a like. It really helps out the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.